What's up, everybody? Welcome to Flux Harmonic Live. I'm David Wilson. We're back again with another Friday stream where we get together and talk about whatever ridiculous thing that I've been working on in the week, and then possibly try to do some other things in addition to that. And this week is no exception. I'm seeing I got a nice little mark in my face here. Sorry for the blemish. You know, whenever you're in the live performance entertainment industry like I am, not really. You gotta, do a better job of not getting heat-induced face rashes. I'm sure that you didn't join the stream today thinking you're gonna hear about that, did you? But here we are. Here we are, indeed. It's Friday. It's been a long week. I've been kind of like whipping AI to the limit this week, and you'll see some results of that today. It's a little bit ridiculous. The title of the stream is a little bit, I don't know. I mean, it's not really like a clickbait because it's kind of real, but at the same time, it is a little bit clickbait. So excuse me for engaging. Yes, Ashraz does say the right thing. Entertainment industry sounds like a completely different industry. Yes, I would not be cut out for that particular industry. Trust me on that. What did I just imply? I don't know. So, yes, completely terrible and poor judgment ideas have been executed upon this week, which we'll talk about. Hi, Trev, says Auntie. Well, Trev's not here, man. Trev's not here. He was here, but he's not here now. And I think, I don't want to jinx it, but I feel like this week is going to go a little bit better internet-wise than last week because, I'm totally shooting myself in the foot by saying this, but my internet has been pretty stable today, so we'll see how well that holds up as time goes on. But I'm optimistic. I'm generally an optimist when it comes to these things, except for whenever it's obvious it's not going to happen. Do you hear a? Okay, maybe it's just a song in the background. I thought I heard like an audio effect that sounded wrong. 1 second, trying to clear up something on the other screen here. So what's the IRC channel for this gig? It is still System Crafters Live because I've got another server that I'm planning to set up soon, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But it will be there. And hi, Heat Rashers. Yes, Trev, you probably know all about that, don't you? I don't know why I would think that, but now I'm just going to pin it on you. Because why not? I like to pin things on you in the streams. I think it's a symbiotic relationship, I'm the host and you're the parasite. That doesn't sound good. Let me put that a different way. Trev is a very good sport whenever I want to blame somebody for something, and it's fun. Speaking of Trev, let me show you what Trev's been working on this week. Trev actually produced a new IRC client for Android. And I've tried it, and it actually looks really good. And if you're in the market for a authentication code, I think it's when I logged into Claude earlier. Look at that. I think that code doesn't work anymore, so don't go try logging into my Claude account with this code. That's not even the whole thing, probably. I hope it's not. Anyway, what am I looking for? I'm looking for, is it on GitHub? GitHub.com/ Trevarge /MOTD. That's the one, right? Show us your phone and bank apps. I'm not going to do that, dude. I already showed you my Claude token. You think I'm going to show you anything else? I'm not that stupid. I'm a little bit stupid, though. So, anyway, Trev actually has screenshots on his README, if you can believe it. I think he actually has a full website, in fact. If you want to go check out Trev's website. But actually, it's a pretty nice IRC client for Android. If you would like to use IRC on Android, which if you're watching this channel, you probably do use IRC and you might use Android. So you should probably install this app because it does a pretty good job of providing an IRC experience on Android. Yes, there are actually screenshots, Auntie. Can you believe that? Somebody actually put screenshots on their README and their website, and they look good. So I can say with personal experience that this is a nice app. It's got Crafter Bin built in, which is pretty useful. You had to pay me to show it. What did you pay me in, dude? What did you pay me in? Nothing. You should give me some tokens. Give me some tokens. Ashra says, I get hit by a 1 minute, 20-second ad on Twitch. That's like my entire stream. A minute and 20 seconds. That's horrible. I got to talk to somebody in my, you know, my Twitch partnership program, my what do you call those people? My liaison. We got to talk to them. I don't have one of those. Sigil coin. Well, I guess if Sigil coin was a real thing, Trev, then you might be able to pay me in that. Not a real currency, though. Anyway, check out Trev's message of the day IRC client because he's been pestering people to try it, and more people should try it. All right, I'm going to see if I can do something about the ads on Twitch because there ain't no way I'm going to make any money on ads on Twitch anyway. So what the hell's the point of it even showing ads? I got to find a way to turn that off if it's on. Okay. So that's one thing. What else is going on? Who's making stuff? Who else is making stuff? Where's Night HK? Oscar says you have some control over when ads are shown, but they will be shown at some point. Well, damn it. I don't want them to be shown. I don't want them trying to profit off of my profiteering on AI. I'm making no profit, by the way. Big Edie says, never had any except for the very beginning on the System Crafters channel. Oh, okay. Well, okay, that's acceptable, I guess, if it's only in the beginning. So, let me say hello to the folks who are here so far. I see Peter, Trev, Big Edie, Ashraz, Auntie. I mean, the people obviously you've seen on the screen already. There's Bugfinder 2000. Looks like any other Claude-generated homepage. It does, doesn't it? I mean, why not? Because who wants to spend the time making a nice-looking web design? Yeah, who wants to spend the time making a damn web design these days? Even mine. Look, fluxharmonic.com. At least it's not like so obviously AI generated, but it's still obviously AI generated. So, I mean, what can I say? It is AI generated. The stream may have blipped because my internet loves to give me trouble. If it's giving you issues, let me know. Because it will probably keep going in and out here and there. Yeah, a little hiccup. Okay. So, anywho. A new Emacs in 5 days. Bold words. Very bold. In fact, stupidly bold for me to even suggest that I made a new Emacs in 5 days or in any amount of time. But that's sort of what I set out to do. Now, yes, you could say this is a complete act of hubris. Something that should never be attempted because the scope of it is too big. But we live in the age of AI and LLMs and agent-driven development, you know, prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is so like 9 months ago, right? But anyway, point being, it is possible for an individual to do things that they shouldn't really do, or they shouldn't be able to do. And I've done that again now. I mean, I did it the first time with Sigil, trying to make my own scheme implementation, and it's gone way too far at this point. Like, it's actually quite good, even though it has problems at times, as you've seen in the stream. Now, I've made a new program with Sigil called Slate, which is basically my Emacs. Is it still flaking out on YouTube? So why would I bother trying to make something like Emacs? I'm not trying to replace Emacs here, people. In fact, I don't even know if anybody's going to use this thing but me. I don't really care. The point isn't for people to use it. I'm not like going to go on the Orange website, aka Hacker News, and like tell people about this thing because I really don't care about people actually finding it. I'm just going to make it and see how it goes just for my own entertainment. And if other people want to try it, that's cool. Big Edie says, I'll use a new Emacs if I can use it as a window manager and org mode. Well, as a window manager, maybe at some point. Org mode, I mean, I have a Sigil org package that can parse org mode files, but I don't think it's at the level of fidelity of the actual org mode parser in Emacs. So I can't really say what that would be like yet, but we'll try it and see. Maybe you can do org mode. But why do this? Well, Emacs is great. And I know that I've been saying over time that I use Emacs less and less, but there's kind of reasons why I've used Emacs less and less, aside from just, you know, using AI most of the time to write code. it has become limited in a way because I can't very easily use it on other devices, or in a way where I can access my files from different machines. Now I know that TRAMP exists and things like that, and I also use Emacs pretty often on my phone through Termux over SSH. But that's not really a great experience. Like, you're using a terminal application on a phone. You're trying to hit, Emacs key bindings on the phone. There's a lot of things you're trying to do that, feel a little bit uncomfortable. So one aspect of doing this is trying to make an Emacs-like program that's just as hackable as Emacs, that works across desktop and mobile in a way that feels natural. And maybe I'll try to show you a little bit of what that means in a minute. That's one thing. The other is Emacs is very text buffer centric, and it's not really easy to make user interfaces that go beyond just being a text buffer. You can do some things that look kind of like a user interface, but it's still very text driven. So I wanted something that would allow me to actually make real UIs in a way that is like Emacs, where you can write your own package code and make your own views that have whatever you want in it, and it's actually using HTML. The other thing I guess I should mention is this editor is written with web technologies. It is a browser-based application, but it's written with Sigil, and it compiles to WASM. So all of the main code of the editor, the program, I hesitate to call it an editor because an editor is like one thing in it. There's a lot of other things too. But it all gets compiled to WASM, which is WebAssembly, which means that you can compile Sigil code directly to effectively native code in the browser, which makes it a lot faster and a lot more feasible to make something like this, especially with a bespoke language that I made myself with the help of AI. The WASM side of Sigil only just came around probably in the last 2 months. I think I started on that when I was gone on a work trip in May. So the WASM compiler stuff is very new, but it has come a long way because I've made 2 quite realistic applications in it now, and it's kind of pushed it, or actually 3, a game also. So I've made 3 things with it that have really pushed it to the limits, and which really is pushing Claude to the limits to bring it to a level of fidelity that enables it to be useful for an application. 2 months, that is fast. Well, 2 months only for the WASM compilation part, which, to be fair, the native compilation of Sigil was the thing that came before that, which took also some time, maybe another month or 2. I'm not exactly sure how long it took. I mean, making it compile Sigil to C. So, okay, let me just explain how this works. Sigil is a scheme implementation that originally was written against a bytecode interpreter. So it gets compiled to bytecode and interpreted on a bytecode VM, which means that it runs faster than just plain interpreted Lisp code, okay? Once I finally got that working, I kind of changed the implementation of the VM a couple times and the compiler a couple times to make it faster. And I eventually hit a wall with a bytecode virtual machine, because obviously you will with a bytecode virtual machine. It's not native code. So you have a couple paths you can take. One of them is to add a just-in-time compiler that will take your bytecode and compile that to native code while the program is running. That's fine, that works. A lot of big runtimes like Java, .NET, others take that approach. I think even Shea Scheme may take that approach to some degree. The other approach is to compile your code to some other language or directly to assembly. Okay, in which assembly is another language, so you could say that. In the Scheme world, there are 2 languages that do something like this, and that's Gambit Scheme, there's Chicken Scheme, and both of those will compile Scheme to C, and then you compile that to native code, or to an actual native binary. And that's the approach I took with Sigil, which is you can pre-compile your program to native via C, and that actually gave me quite a lot more performance. And the other interesting benefit of that, which is the reason why I'm telling you all this, is that you can also compile C to WASM pretty easily if you have a compiler that compiles C to WASM. And there's Emscripten, which is something that's been around for a while. I've used it quite a bit. And then there's also the WASM compiler that comes with Zig. And I was already using Zig, and I didn't really want all the overhead of using Emscripten. So I just went on ahead and used Zig to compile my C to WASM. And then I had to basically make my own little ecosystem around it to provide access to all the browser APIs. See, Ashraz? But basically what we're at now is that I have a more or less complete native scheme to native code in the browser via WASM compiler toolchain and set of libraries around it that bridge the WASM code to JavaScript APIs. So, you know, the DOM, local storage, networking stuff, WebSockets, pretty much whatever I need to make an actual application at this point. There, and also OpenGL, you know, Canvas, WebGL, all that stuff. So all that is kind of expanding, but it all reached a point where I was like, well, you know, I've got all this stuff now. Why don't I just try to make the Emacs-like program that I always had in mind, because it's something I always wanted to do. And I decided to do that on maybe Sunday or Monday. And since then, it literally has been 5 days. I'm at the point now where you see the thing that you're seeing on the screen right now. This is not Emacs. This is a program that I made called Slate that's written in Sigil, and it's actually running in a browser. This is actually WebKit GTK, and it's running in my own application wrapper called Lantern, which is sort of like Electron, but way less bulky. In fact, it's more like an application called Tori, which is made with Rust. It's basically a wrapper for making web-based applications that get distributed on the desktop, like a desktop app. And kind of took some inspiration from what they do. I mean, didn't look at the code, but you know, Claude knows how Tori works in general. So it basically made its own Tori-like thing in Sigil, which wraps WebKit GTK and provides, there are more named libraries, Sigil libraries than Pokemon. There are, yes, I've got quite a few now. So it's basically got a bridge between the WebKit GTK control, where the WASM-based editor program is being hosted, and then the APIs that give it access to the file system and process execution and pretty much anything else that we would need at that level. So it's effectively a real application, and as you can tell, actually the rendering on my other screen makes it seem really slow, but I'm moving the window around the screen, and you can tell that the window is actually translucent, which is pretty cool. You know, you actually get cool stuff like translucency because of the functionality of WebKit GTK and the ability of CSS to have like a translucent background on whatever. So we have a program here that is Emacs-like. If I press Control K, so I don't have all the Emacs key bindings wired up yet. I'm gonna have basically parity with Emacs key bindings, and in fact, I've got a commit I could probably merge in a little while that will wire some more of them up, but I don't want to do that just yet because I want to kind of go through showing what's going on here before I do that. But let's just see what it can do. It's going to be buggy because it has only been alive for 5 days, but it does work. So one thing that you can notice here is that this is a markdown buffer. It is doing highlighting of the buffer. There's like, you know, code, what do you call these? Code fences. Yeah, they have code fences. They have headings that have different font sizes. That was kind of a larger bit of work, is getting an editable buffer like Emacs, where you can have multiple face settings in the same buffer that have different font weights and sizes, et cetera, et cetera. So if I were to do like an underscore, is this italic? Does it work? Yeah, it works. It goes italic and then bold. So yeah, you can set faces in a buffer, and this is actually going based on the syntax highlighting that is built in for Markdown. It's not great yet, not very performant on the highlighting aspect of things, but it does work. I've been squeezing the most out of Claude that I can get this week to try to get all this stuff to be like pretty good performance. Auntie says, looks cool, it looks minimal. Are you going to add buffers and then splits? Well, yeah, why not? Let's see if we can add a split right now. Let me drag the window out a little bit more. Where is the little handle for resizing? There we go. So I'm gonna hit Control K. So we got a little, basically like a mini buffer selection pane thing. I mean, it kind of looks like a command palette because it's, you know, a little bit more polished than what you would see in Emacs, but you know, it's like Meta X. Okay, so this is like Meta X. If I were to say split right, then you can see I'm splitting this buffer to the right, and then if I use Control X2, it splits it down. So we got 3 of these. Control K, this is VS Code. It's not VS Code, man. Claude set up the key binding to start with. I'm fixing it, all right? So anyway, it does have, it does have panes. It doesn't have resizable panes yet because, I mean, that's kind of a lower priority, but you can definitely scroll around in here. This is actually the same buffer open 3 different times, as you can see. If I do Control X0, it will close one. If I do Control X1, it will focus on the buffer. So it's basically like Emacs in the pane management. So you got that. Also, find file. I need to work on the UI for this because the text is really small. And also just like the general interface, I need to make everything scale more uniformly. But that's something that will come pretty fast whenever, you know, like next week, there's going to be a huge amount of polish done. I think by the end of next week, it's going to be feeling pretty good. But so far, it's not bad. So anyway, pain management is important in Emacs. You know, when I said that, I knew that that was going to pop into somebody's head. So anyway, you basically can just, you know, walk through the folder hierarchy. You can do fuzzy matching on names. Let me see. Where's a good place to do fuzzy matching on names? Maybe on my code projects folder. I can type in SIG and get some Sigil things filtered down. What about mesh? Yeah, how about a mesh folder? So I'm going to press enter on this directory path. What do you think is going to happen? I'm going to press enter. Oh, there's DRED too. Something like DRED anyway. So we got a DRED-like experience where you can drill into folders and pop back out. It's kind of hard to tell. The text is a little bit smaller than it needs to be. Like I said, I'll fix all that stuff. But you can pop into like a C file here. I'm going to open this main.c. We do have C syntax highlighting already. All right. So the languages that are supported at the moment are C, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. You mean directory, right? DRED? Well, I'm calling it the folder browser, okay? So I'm not gonna call it DRED because this is not Emacs. It's kind of like Emacs, but we're gonna kind of deviate a little bit. So C, HTML, JavaScript, CSS, YAML, TOML, Sigil, Scheme, well, Guile Scheme specifically. If you open up a Golang, no, not yet. But I mean, come on, like this is, I'm getting Claude to write the parsers for all the languages. So whatever language you want, there will be a grammar for it. Manifest.scm. Okay, this is not a really good example of that. In fact, is this broken or is my thing not rendering it correctly? Deer is a better name. I don't know. Folder. The folder browser. Dot files. David Will. Systems. Base. Okay, it's doing some weird stuff where it's duplicating the first line. I don't know what's happening there. Why not Sigil tree sitter? I have a reason for that. But you can see it actually is highlighting Guile pretty well. So, why not tree sitter? Because tree sitter grammars are quite heavy. I don't really want like heavy stuff in the binary unless it's like, you know, valuable. So I'm trying to avoid having all the other stuff. Nah, folder sounds bad. It's like something cheap and nasty. I don't think so, man. Come on, you're just hazing me right now. I don't think that it sounds bad at all. If people hate it, I can change it, but I don't think it's bad. So I'm gonna weigh my vote a little bit more heavily than others, I think. You can vote on that though. Yeah, the highlighting looks pretty good. Also, themes. You gotta have themes, right? Where's the damn theme? Theme? Is it down there and you just can't see it? What the hell? Switch theme. Okay, I don't know why it didn't show up. Switch theme. There it is. Deer +1. Okay. So, hold up. What is going on right now? Switch theme. Ah, finally. Okay, so I got quite a lot of themes. We need to make the weighting system more explicit. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know how many themes this is. It's like 24 or something. I got a few that you probably recognize the names of. All right, so the default theme is not the one I'm using right now. I'm actually using AU Dark. So the Slate Dark theme that you start with is like this. In fact, let me turn the transparency off. Okay, now you can actually see the real essential background color here. So this is the default Slate theme, kind of bluish. I mean, not really anything that special, okay? Flux Dark is like the Flux Harmonic color theme, at least from the website. And the cool thing is that some of the stuff in the UI is kind of glowing a little bit because you have CSS, which gives you the ability to make things glow. So why not a little bit of glowing? You can turn the glowing off too if you want. But that's a theme. Groovebox, obviously Groovebox. Everybody knows Groovebox. Then Solarized Dark. Way better without the transparency. It is all configurable. Hello, Andrea. Dracula. Let's see. Nord. I mean, you know these themes. I like the Tokyo Night one. It's pretty good. What else? Kanagawa. That one looks pretty cool. And, you know, there's some good ones in here. It's cool. Are we vibe coding a new Emacs from scratch? Basically, yes. I mean, I have vibe coded one, and it's, you know, it's made progress. You can see that it's working. It hasn't crashed yet. It will probably crash at some point or do something weird. I actually did see it do something weird first. Oh, no Monakai? That's a good question, actually. Oh, no, it's right there. Monakai. Boom. Want some Monakai? You got it. So it's got themes. I mean, it has to have themes. Let's put the transparency back on. Transparency level, it's opacity, actually. So I'm going to put the content opacity a little bit higher. It's at 85. No, okay. So there you go. It's not so see-through now. And I'm going to go back to the AU Dark because I kind of like that theme for Flux Harmonic. Okay. Is it written in Scheme? It is written in Scheme. Another interesting detail about this so far is that this is not the actual like internal model of Emacs. So the way that Emacs works, many of you here know, yes, it's Sigil, my own scheme. The way that Emacs works is that you've got a ginormous namespace of functions and variables and other things that are sort of defined inside of the Emacs Lisp global scope, okay? You got a lot of stuff that's defined in there. You got all the variables, you got all the commands, everything's there, right? So you can actually do a lot with that. You can inspect the system very well. You can define new things on the fly. You can redefine things on the fly. All that's great. In Sigil, we're not following the exact model because Scheme does not really do so well with having a big global scope where everything is sort of in the same space, okay? So Sigil is a language that does have module namespaces, let's say. So like as you can see in, let's see, let me pull up a file somewhere. Let's see if it works without breaking everything. So project code, Sigil, Slate. Let's see, source, Slate. Where we want to go? We'll go to the face code. All right, so we're in the face code here. So we actually have a defined library where we import certain modules, we export certain bindings, okay? And as you see here, we have dictionaries that are kind of like Clojure. I don't like the fact that Claude keeps putting in keywords like this as values. It needs to be putting symbols as values, but I digress. Point being is that Sigil does not play the global namespace game, right? Like Emacs Lisp does. So how do we deal with that? What do we do? Well, if you've ever written any Clojure before, you've probably heard of this concept of having an app state dictionary, which holds kind of the whole state of the application. It is a thing that shows up in a UI library called Reframe. So you basically have an application flow where everything that happens in your app goes through effectively a reducer, where you have like a global application object that is immutable, but then by virtue of things that are happening in the application, that state object gets changed and the new state gets stored as the global state, okay? So it's a bit different. You don't have a big ball of mutable state per se. You kind of do, but you don't. And the idea is that whenever you need to change something in the code, you're changing that global state dictionary. I have not written any code against that yet. I have not written a package or an extension against that yet. It is possible to write code in like new modes. So in fact, if you want to look at a mode, we can look at, let's let's see, not paren. Why did it jump to the end? That was not good. Where's rainbow parens? Modes. Oh, minors. Okay, how about that? All right, so here's rainbow parens. All right, so we've got, let's see. Yeah, define minor mode, rainbow. Peter says, isn't that a pretty generic way to do data-oriented programming, unidirectional information flow? Yes, and we're going to try it for this and see if it works, see how well it scales. So far, it's doing pretty good. Like, I'm getting quite good throughput on updating things. In fact, the UI model here is using a virtual DOM. It's using a model similar to React where when you want to re-render the UI, you are basically regenerating the DOM of the application, and that's being diffed against the current DOM, and you're only making changes to the stuff that has actually changed since the last time that you're trying to render everything. So it actually is pretty efficient to update it. Now, the editor itself is not done that way. The editor is managed a completely different way because there's no way you're going to virtual DOM a text editor and have it be efficient enough to use on a daily basis. You're not going to do it to a terminal emulator either, which I haven't shown you yet. We'll see in a minute. Peter says, I guess Redux was made on that principle and they stole it from OCaml. Well, yeah. So there was a language called ReasonML, which was spawned in Facebook, which was written in OCaml. And then that influenced React and Redux. And now we have the JavaScript ecosystem using functional programming patterns for a long time. Peter says, with Clojure, it fits really well with the persistent collection libraries. Yes, exactly. And that's why Sigil has dicts, which are basically like Clojure maps. So it's a persistent data structure, key value data structure, and that's what the global state is held in. So we're doing some Clojure-like programming here in this here editor. But like the actual human being trying to write their own extension to it, it's not really there yet. We're going to have to see how that goes. Trev says, there was some crazy ReasonML VS Code like editor. Can't remember the name. I can't remember it either. But here we've got a define minor mode for rainbow parens, effectively. I don't know why it keeps jumping. You can tell what the lighter is. And that's the reason why there's a rainbow up here, is because I've got rainbow parens mode on to make it have the rainbow parens. You see how the different depths have different colors here. So we have that. And then there's a decoration function, rainbow decorations, which takes V. What is V in this case? View brackets, and we're pulling the buffer out of the dictionary using dictref. So we're pulling the buffer out, and then let's see, function view brackets V. So we're extracting a function out of the state somehow. Is that what's happening? And then eventually we're calling that function against the buffer at the very end to return an updated buffer. Otherwise, we return an empty list, it seems. So every bracket goes to a single care decoration in its depths rainbow face. This hook then self-gates to empty list, so nothing double renders, and the old whole buffer bracket scan never, I don't know what it's even saying. But the point is, this is a functional programming model for extension. It is inspired by Emacs, but it is not Emacs, okay? We're gonna see how far this takes us. I don't really know whether it will be good or not. Yes, Trev, you see, like, you could read the code and be like, what the hell is it talking about? Well, I'm gonna have to go through there and like leave some notes to be like, look, explain this to me, explain this to the people who are gonna actually go to try to extend this thing so we know exactly what to do. But anyway, the point is there is a model for it. We just don't really have it human polished yet, let's say. A human being will not necessarily be able to write stuff for this just yet, but that's okay, because really the point is to torture Claude to the point where it poops out an end-to-end complete and awesome editor experience, and then we just mold it. I've been molding it the whole time I've been working on it. I mean, it started out looking very different than this, but now we're here, okay? Let's see, another thing, terminal emulation. This was actually a pretty fun thing to do. At first I thought, okay, it makes sense. We probably just use like xterm.js and somehow like connect that to a PTY through some interface. But Claude had a different idea. Claude was like, why don't we just write this shit ourselves? And I was like, all right, let's see how good you can do. Let's see what kind of perf you can get. It wasn't so good at first, but I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and it got a lot better. So let me just show you at first what it does, and then I'll explain what's going on. So I'm gonna hit Control-XT and open up terminal. So we've got an embedded terminal emulator here. You see my actual prompt and bash configuration, etc. I'm gonna do something really stupid and foolish. I'm gonna do ls-r GNU store, okay? And you know there's probably a million things in here, so let's see if it actually renders. And actually, now that I think about it, you're not gonna see it very well on the screen. It's gonna seem very slow. It's gonna seem fast to me, but let's just see what happens. So to me, this is like flying by. It's not as fast as like Ghost TTY or Foot, but it's quite fast. And if I hit Control-C, it actually responds very soon after I hit Control-C, and then it exits out. Normally, if you're using something that can't handle fire hose output in from a PTY, it's gonna just like completely hang your application. But it didn't actually do it in our case. In fact, it did pretty well. Like it actually kept up with it and printed it out. Now you can't see that on that screen. Like what you're looking at, it looks like a page at a time because the rendering I'm using across the screens, I'm actually using like WebRTC to show the screen on here. It's not fast enough to catch it. However, this is quite fast. So how does it work? Well, number one, I guess I should talk about this now. Lantern. Can you open NeoVim? I haven't tried to open NeoVim, but I guess I could. Why not? Geek Shell. NeoVim. NeoVim. Is it NeoVim? Is it NV? What is it? Readme.md. Geek Shell is doing the thing again. Testing my applause generator. So you weren't actually excited. You were just testing a package. I see, Peter. Great. I thought you were just super excited. All right, so there's NeoVim. NVim. All right, cool. So we're in NVim. I'm gonna Control-V this thing to select a block and delete it and then undo it. I mean, it's working, right? You see it? You got NeoVim inside of my stupid editor that I made in 5 days. Actually works. I'm gonna get out of there. The other thing that would be, useful to look at is, can you run Claude? Can you Claude inside of this terminal emulator? And the answer is yes, you can. Does it work? Well, tell me something about this repository. I actually spent a fair amount of time getting it to render the stupid stuff in the terminal so that the star thing doesn't like shift around all over the place, and the where is it? Oh, I can't shift tab. I forgot. That's one thing that's not working right now. Shift tab is broken in the terminal emulator, but getting the what's it called? Auto mode arrows to render correctly. I had to get it to go back to the drawing board on that today, but it actually does work. You can use Claude code inside of the terminal in this thing. So it's basically at a point now where I'm gonna start using this as my daily driver for the terminal experience. I've got also some ideas that I'm gonna implement probably next week to directly interface with tmux so that this will be a tmux UI. So you can do tmux session management with Slate and have multiple terminals with tmux managing the history, being able to detach and everything else. So if you've ever used iTerm2 on Mac OS, apparently that is a tmux interface that uses something called tmux CC mode, which is like a control code mode, where it's almost like a standard in, standard out kind of protocol where you connect to the tmux process in that way, and then you can kind of manage a whole tmux session and have panes that are split, manage all of the windows inside the session, et cetera, et cetera. So we're basically going to end up having a really good tmux interface built in here, and that will make it easier for managing all your claudes and your codexes if you want to. So that's cool. Last stream, we're not appreciative enough. This stream peeved about applause being automated. That's right. You'll never make me happy. This is what we're saying here. I'm just joking, Peter. I appreciate the applause, even though like I feel like it's not 100% warranted. Okay. So, all right, that works, right? How the hell does that work? Seems kind of weird that it actually works. Where's my... Yeah, there we go. All right. So, there's a couple things going on here. First of all is... Let's see, Sigil slash Lantern. I mentioned before. Lantern is basically the wrapper for Sigil apps, which is not just for Slate. It's for anything. So if you write a Sigil-based web application that you want to distribute to a desktop, you can basically use Lantern to wrap that and deliver it to people. And by default, it comes with a CLI where you can just like tell it to go run an application that's in a certain folder or at a certain URL to test things out. So you don't even have to package the application. You can just do local testing, which has been pretty useful for running through some of these improvements today. But Lantern basically gives you the shell and also the integration to the local system. Part of that is the web view. Part of that is the bridge, which connects the JavaScript to the Sigil to JavaScript to the local machine effectively through some very specific APIs for file system, for process management, etc. And that's part of where all this comes from. Is like Sigil itself has the ability to launch a sub-process as a PTY and then stream the input-output from that, okay? So that's one thing. It can stream the PTY through the code. Then Lantern itself has the ability to write that data to like a shared buffer that makes it really fast to get it from Sigil into the JavaScript layer, which then Sigil can read as at the WASM layer. So we've got Sigil on both sides managing this thing. You got Sigil on the desktop, and you got Sigil in the browser through WASM. And all the output that you see going all the way through there is going through Sigil on both ends, which is pretty awesome, through a JavaScript layer and a C layer, effectively. Then on the actual rendering side, we've got something called Sigil VT, which is a high-performance grid-based. It basically manages the grid of the terminal that you have, especially if you like resize it or whatever. It manages the grid in a very efficient way that does like damage tracking, scroll back, all the things that you need for having a virtual terminal embedded in an application. That's just the sort of the data model. So Sigil VT gives you the ability to pull that stuff out really quickly, to manage it really quickly. This is all written in native code, so it's not actually written in Sigil. The most important parts of this are in the native folder here, so it's all C code. And that gets compiled directly to WASM as part of building this library. So you've got native code that does all this stuff. You got, blah, 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 all these loops and everything that are doing all this, the special VT management, okay? You got all that in there. That gives that through a Sigil layer to the Sigil code itself. And then at that layer, then you've got a highly efficient renderer in WASM that does the DOM management for rendering the grid onto the screen. So you go all the way up the stack. We basically got like Sigil at every level, talking to the process that it launches, handling the other side when it receives the data onto the WASM layer, and then the actual rendering using not exactly the VDOM stuff. There's a couple of places where you have to switch out of VDOM into actually managing an element directly because it has to be done fast that way. But I mean, that's probably not very unusual, I would say. I think it's pretty usual for high performance stuff in a website, effectively a website. So terminal emulator, text editor, kind of an extensibility framework, app wrapper. So you basically got an application in 5 days that shows the potential. I think it shows quite enough potential that this could be pretty damn usable within like 2 weeks. Like in 2 weeks, this thing could be a daily driver that would work well enough that you would probably not really want to use Emacs. Not that I'm trying to get people off Emacs, but if you were interested in using something like this, you could do that, all right? So this is just sort of like table stakes. If you're an Emacs user, this is the kind of stuff that you're like, okay, well, all this stuff is what I need for day-to-day use. But okay, now that we've got this, what can we do next? Like, what's sort of the next step after that? Well, there's some interesting things that I've got planned. There is another project that I haven't spent a lot of time on yet, but it's coming. Dead man walking. It's called Familiar. Oh, okay. So I haven't pushed the repository yet. So Familiar, heretic. Familiar is a daemon that you run, not a daemon like a spirit, but I guess I did call it familiar, didn't I? There's a daemon, a background process that you run on your machine, and its role is do basically what Lantern is doing, which is having that interface directly to the system. In fact, they both use the same underlying library called Sigil system, which is what's doing a lot of this stuff. So if you look at Sigil system, it basically gives you the PTY session streaming, file system processes, blah, blah, blah. So it's got like more of a complete system interface, let's say. So this core library has the same functionality that you would have in Lantern, but also would be in Familiar. Now, what's the point of Familiar? Well, you've probably heard me talking about Enclave. Enclave is an IRC server. And why am I talking about an IRC server? Well, it turns out that having a self-hostable IRC server has some really interesting properties. I mean, one thing is you can kind of chat with your friends with your self-hosted IRC server, but the other thing is that you can hook up programs to it as basically a message bus to do interesting things like having Slate instances on multiple machines and being able to talk to your different systems and read files and run processes and have terminal sessions, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, I know this sounds like a security hole. It might be. We're going to try to tighten it up, make it work. But the point is, Familiar is going to connect to the IRC server to a designated channel for you, the user, and your Slate instances will connect to the same IRC channel, and they'll be able to see each other. So you'll have your interfaces on your desktop, on your phone, even in the website. You can go into a website and connect to the Enclave server over WebSockets. So you could like basically, I could have a statically hosted Slate. To be a security hole, there would have to be something around the hole. I don't know what that means. So even on a website, you can connect to the Enclave server through WebSockets. And by doing that, you would have access to the files on your machine. Now, there's a grant model built into both Lantern and Familiar that should prevent you from giving access to parts of your system that you don't want. That's kind of the idea anyway. It needs to be security audited, etc. But because you're not connecting directly to the system, it's actually brokering through the IRC server. It's harder to imagine someone being able to get through there. But I don't know. Like, I'm not a security expert. Somebody will have to come and look at this and see that I'm not doing something completely insane. But the idea is you have the IRC server, which you probably host yourself or somebody hosts it and you use it. You have your IRC server. You have your familiars on your multiple machines connecting to that, and you have your Slate instances connecting to it also, and you have this basically this junction point where you can kind of access all your machines and your systems. It kind of gives you a TRAMP-like experience, but I think it would be a lot better, especially because you have the ability to use it on mobile and have access to all your files. So like basically if you have a bunch of org mode files or markdown files that you're keeping as your notes, or your projects you're working on, or basically like your Emacs sessions, you could have access to them from anywhere, and then have that whole hackable interface where you can kind of make your own workflows in it and your own UIs for whatever you're trying to manage. You could have UIs where your agents are pushing things into the UI for you. So if you have Claude Code hooked up to everything, you can have it push things into your UI. Like one idea that I have for this is a dashboard UI every day. I mean, I already have Claude on a timer every morning. It reads my email. Yeah, sure. Reads my email, reads all my to-do list that it manages through an MCP server that I have, all through Markdown files. It generates a briefing, and it sends it to me over Telegram or IRC currently. So it sends it to me, it formats it itself. But, I mean, that's just text. Why wouldn't it just, like, give me a literal to-do list on the screen, give me, like, my calendar events I need to look at, give me other information that maybe I need to deal with. It could just generate that UI itself and show it to me every day. And I could have that on the screen as kind of a panel to be looking at it. So the possibilities are pretty big here, I think, in what it could possibly do, both on a desktop machine and on a mobile device, especially if you have like AI agents that you've got things connected to. I've already got the ability in Enclave to register like bot accounts, which really is for connecting your agents in. I've got an MCP server that allows you to connect your agents in through Claude Code to Enclave, so you can kind of send messages to them and get them to do things. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff going on, dude. There's a lot of stuff. There's like a whole crazy vision here, but I think it all kind of makes sense. It's ridiculous, but it kind of makes sense. We're working towards something here. It's been kind of a weird 9 months. Questions. Who has questions? Who wants to tell me that I'm crazy for doing this? I mean, I already know I'm crazy for doing this, but I'm curious on other people's thoughts on the insanity. While you think about that, I'm gonna pull this out and make it really narrow so you can see. Let's see how it changes into mobile mode whenever you get it narrow enough. Pop, there it is. If you want to use IRC as a broker to make a message bus, is it opinionated about machine messaging? In what way? I will say I am not an expert in messaging systems, message buses, things like 0MQ and other things of that nature. So I have a lot to learn. And if people have ideas or thoughts, they should please tell me. Is implementing your own MQTT broker for machine-to-machine comms not more appropriate? Maybe. And the thing is, Enclave is an IRC server right now, but it might end up becoming more of a messaging engine where IRC is kind of like one edge of it. And why would I still have it be IRC at that point? I don't know. I started with the IRC v3 idea, and I'm still going to use that because I think it's kind of useful. But it is kind of branching out a bit. Maybe I should think about like what would I do if I went with like a truly pure implementation and not just trying to like shoehorn it into IRC. But it did sound kind of cool though. It sounded kind of interesting. Anyway, if you pull this into a narrow aspect ratio, you will see that there's a little bar that pops up down here. These are like, it's like a toolbar, but it's a little bit different because not all the stuff is shown at any given moment. It is contextual, okay? You click panes and you get little actions for things you can do with panes, like splitting to the right or splitting down or focusing to just make it snap back to the one that was there. Let me get it to re-render. Okay, I guess the terminal got messed up. But these show up based on what mode that you're in. There's a term mode one here. You could do like a control R. I don't know why it has control R here, but it does send it. That was default applause. That was a real applause. Thank you. Andrea says, this is my wet dream. It's mine too. It's why I'm making it. This crazy shit that I'm making is because I want it. I need it, okay? I've been thinking about it for years. I literally have been thinking about a lot of these things for years, and now I can finally do it because AI has enabled me to. Even though people hate AI, and I get it, the results kind of speak for themselves. Now, people can say, oh, this is just slop. Well, it's slop if you just let the AI one-shot it, but if you're actually like holding Claude's face to the grindstone all day long and saying, make it better, eventually it will get better and it will be quite stable because Sigil itself is pretty damn stable at this point, and it only gets better over time as they keep finding more bugs because they're making real applications with it. And the same thing will happen with Slate too. Peter said, now AI has dropped the bar to get over the hills. I mean, it basically has enabled me to accomplish what I've wanted to accomplish for years and couldn't do because it's just too big in about 9 months. And I think probably by the end of the year, I will have done most of what I wanted to do, and I'll have to figure out what to do next because it will be done. But we'll figure that out when we get there. So anyway, contextual buttons that show up. Let's see, should I try to jump over to a source buffer? I mean, if I go to a DRED buffer, you'll see there's some issues here that need to be fixed. But like there's a folder menu here. So it's all contextual based on what you do, all right? Where you end up in. There's a view switcher. It's not buffers. There's a view switcher button here, so you can easily switch to other views. If you go massively distributed, I guess complexity will rise rapidly. Yeah. You mean like if I get a lot of users, or you mean something different? So you can double click that or double tap it to switch to the previous buffer. That's kind of useful if you're switching back and forth between two buffers on a mobile device, right? What else? There's also this keyboard button. So in a lot of cases on a phone, when you're in a UI that doesn't have an active text field, you don't have the ability to get to the keyboard. And if you use Termux, one of the things that it does is you can kind of swipe your finger from the left side, and it gives you a sidebar where you hit a keyboard button to pop the keyboard on demand. Well, I've added one here in this activity bar. If you click this keyboard, yes, Trev, I'll show you. And you can hit toggle keyboard to pop the keyboard up. And there's also toggle buttons, which aren't working right now because it's not actually mobile. Oh, it does work if I click it. Where you can toggle Control and Alt. So if you wanted to toggle Control and Alt to hit an Emacs key binding inside of a non-editable buffer, you can do that. It also works in editable buffers. So if you need to use actual key bindings for something, you can do it, even if your virtual keyboard on your phone doesn't have Control or Alt, which is the case in a lot of keyboards, okay? Like if you want to have a normal keyboard that you would use for texting people, and not like the hacker keyboard or whatever, those kind of keyboards that don't have good completions, then you don't really have Control and Alt. So I've given you one here that you can use. It's not perfect yet, but it does work. Also, another thing worth mentioning, when you're typing in buffers, autocorrect, autocomplete does work, and it does the right thing most of the time, even in code buffers. Now we can have Emacs index finger, sorry, Slate index finger, basically like that. I mean, if people call this Emacs, I don't give a crap about it. Let's see, do I have a source buffer open, main.c? Oh, no, I want a Sigil buffer. So one weird thing I've noticed is that as soon as I open a terminal, it starts overriding the contents of other buffers for some reason. I have no idea when that happens, but it's fixable, and it probably will be fixed tomorrow, who knows? So, oh yeah, here's some more editing stuff inside of this buffer, moving the point, running code, panes, etc., etc. You can switch these. There's also some swipe mechanics here. So if you're actually swiping this on a phone, you can switch back and forth between these chips, we're calling them, these category chips, by swiping over the commands. So I think this is a pretty good start for making a mobile-friendly interface for an Emacs-like program, or just a text editor or productivity app where you can get to things with your thumb without having to do a lot of gymnastics. That's the idea anyway, all right? We also have a spaces concept, which is not fully implemented yet, but if you click this main down here, you should be able to switch to another workspace effectively. Not done yet, but it will be done. What else? We got the mode line up here. If you click the file name, you can see the full file path. You've got the normal stuff you would see in a mode line, like the column and line of the buffer, the percentage that you are for the buffer, how big the buffer is. And that's customizable per mode. We don't really have a mode line format yet. Probably will at some point. I don't know. Like, there need to be some thoughts on like what is the right stuff to do in a more modern Emacs editor, Emacs-like editor or environment that don't just rip off everything from Emacs. So I'm trying to like find that balance as I'm doing this. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that changes as I go through working on this thing. So, you know, don't necessarily try it and then expect that things will stay the same. In fact, I would like people to try it and give feedback if they want to, but if they don't, that's fine too, because really, I'm just gonna have fun using it myself. So if you don't use it, I don't know. Let me restart this session because I think it's hosed. I'm gonna start Slate again, and there it is. Oh, I got a cool little like Maxis-like startup screen. You probably didn't see that because it started too fast, which is a good problem to have. The loading screen has a little, you know, quotes that pop up. Andrea says, this is all done by Fable, I suppose. Not all. So the strategy that I've used. Peter says, I think having the editing engine running in an isolated container and communicate to the UI and the user's environment is a powerful feature. Well, the editing engine itself won't be in a container, but the access to the file system and the access to processes and terminals and stuff will be mediated through a separate process, at least. I mean, we could think about something like that, though. So anyway, oh, and language servers I haven't thought about putting in yet. In fact, this is literally the first moment I've thought about putting language servers in. But that's something that will happen too. Where was I headed? Damn it, I lost my train of thought. Okay, it's coming back to me. So yeah, you saw me launch the program. Okay, so it's basically a desktop app. It loads pretty fast. That's great. It's cool, right? Morgan says, I'm late and very confused, but will this use something like TreeSitter or TextMate grammars to implement syntax highlighting and indentation control? It does not right now. It's got a bespoke model. We will see if I put TreeSitter in. TreeSitter is definitely possible. It's just a matter of how bulky it is. But I should probably try it because it will give us like the whole world of grammars. Peter says, you kind of want to run the LSP build in that container too, or at least I want that. Yeah, to actually have the dev experience separated, I think that's doable. It's totally doable with this model. So, on the web, is it possible to run this on the web? Yes, because it's a web app. So I'm gonna go down into the Slate folder. I use Ultra Code. Oh, that was it. Thank you, Andrea, for reminding me. Let me get back to that in a second. So I'm in Slate here. It's already built, okay? If you look into the build web folder, you'll see there is an index.html, there is a slate.wasm, and all the lib files for all the bridges that we have. Well, these are probably SGBs. Okay, those are SGBs. No. Is it in assets? It's in assets. All right, all the bridge JavaScript files. All right, fine. So Sigil serve. It automatically picks up that build web folder and it starts the server at 8770. So localhost 8770. This will take a little bit longer to load, I think. Okay, there you go. So Slate loads up in the browser. This could be statically hosted anywhere. Once I have the functionality in for you to actually connect to your machine through the broker server, whatever that ends up being, if it's Enclave or some other server in the middle, you can connect to that and then see all your files, okay? So you could be anywhere on a browser and connect to your machine to access your stuff. All the same stuff works in here. In fact, I'm using Firefox right now, as you can see, and switch theme. Sure, Dracula. All the same stuff works. The terminal does not work because there's no backend for terminal. But if you have familiar set up and you connect to your familiar through Slate, then you will have access to the terminal, your files, everything else. So this is just a fake PTY for the purpose of demonstration, but it is there. There are no actual files to start with. In fact, if I go to a Control-X-D for the directory browser and go into there, there's nothing there. So there's really nothing here. There is a browser backend, which it doesn't seem like it's working right now. It should be wired up. But anyway, if you go to browser:/, then you can actually store files in local storage for the browser that you're in. So that would be a way for you to do like kind of live coding in here, like running code against Sigil, et cetera, et cetera. That's for later. But yes, the web experience is kind of a first-class thing. This is actually how I would make a web-based Sigil IDE, where you could go to a website that I provide you and maybe write like a little browser game in Sigil or some other code, just kind of try it out. Like we have right now on the Use Sigil website, there is the, why is it not loading? There we go. I don't like this new and emojified feeder. Yes, he's doing it pretty hardcore. Try it here. Why is it so slow? Anyway, you should be able to go there and we'll load up basically a playground type experience, okay? So it's got like an editor on the left side and a REPL on the right side. You can execute code. It's all cool. Slate would give you much better experience than that because you actually have the ability to, like, you know, split your windows and maybe have a REPL environment that kind of can be wherever you want it to be, have your text editor. I must have really slow downstream right now because this is taking forever. It's taking forever. I'm gonna let that load for a second. Just give me a second. Okay, there, it finally loaded by the time I move my cursor off the screen. All right, so it was slow for you. Maybe it's just Codeberg, because Codeberg likes to have outage type things constantly and resource issues constantly. So I don't really know what to say, but if you go there, you can run these various different examples, like the channels example, and run it and see the output in here. Okay, so this is very basic. This is very basic, and it would be nice if you could have like an actual IDE-like environment to do all this. And this is what we'll have eventually. I don't know if it will be on the Sigil website. It might, but at least for now, the potential is there, okay? So you can imagine even using this from your phone. It does work on the phone. In fact, if I go to the DevTools, you got one of those too, don't you? Boom. All right, so if I move this down, you can see that it does do the mobile type display. So basically, okay, it's not doing what I expected to. Anyway, the point is that you could have a Sigil IDE on the web in the browser and be able to write scheme code basically on your phone and execute it and save it and share it to other people. One of the cool things that we could do is effectively have a playground where you can save your project and then share it to other people and they can fork it and do their own stuff against it. I don't know, like all that stuff would be great if it's a language that's meant for other people to use it. But like I keep saying, I don't really expect other people to use it. I'm just doing it for me. And if other people like to use it, that's cool. Trev has been like the #1 user for a while. Glenn also has done some use on Sigil. But I don't really expect it to be like a big thing. But it's cool to have this stuff anyway. Like if anybody just happens to come across it and to see like a full Sigil-based IDE in the browser that works and you can kind of, you know, make non-trivial apps with it, I think that'd be pretty cool, right? Okay. Good question. It is time to answer that question. So Andrea asks, this is cool, but now tell us how the sausage is made. Yes. Okay, well, Andrea asked the question, have I been using Fable for all of this? No. In fact, I've been using Fable very judiciously and very specifically. I use Opus most of the time. But for this specific project, since Fable has been available to people, and if you don't know what Fable is or Opus is, basically Anthropic, the creator of Claude, the AI models and the tools that are kind of made around it, they have a few different levels of quality of their AI models, okay? So the one that started everything off was called Sonnet, and that one is kind of like the low to mid-tier model right now. It does a pretty good job with coding and information work, but it's not great. Opus was the one that came out last year. What was it? Opus 4? Opus 3.5? What was the version? Anyway, point is, Opus 4.5 maybe came out last November or September, October, November. Anyway, around that time frame, that's when I started the Sigil project because I was like, okay, I've heard this model is really good. Let me see if it can make my dream project, which at the time is my own scheme implementation, which I had written by hand once before and, you know, made some progress with, but it wasn't very good. So I wanted to try that again just to see how far I could get. And it basically got a working scheme implementation with a bytecode interpreter and everything in, I don't know, like 2 weeks to the point where it was kind of usable. It wasn't great, but it was usable. And I was kind of seeing the potential of it. So fast forward to now, you know, I've kind of gone through the updates of Opus 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8. Is it 4.8 now? Am I right about that? Yeah, 4.8. So it's been getting better and worse in various ways over time, but I've continued to make progress with Sigil. On this specific project, is right at the time when Fable, the new super smart model, that's the most smart model they have, now they finally made it available to people in a reliable way where you can use it for whatever you need. Now, it does use up quite a lot of your allotted quota. So you hear people talking about tokens. It's basically like the amount of access that you have to the AI in a given 5-hour span or a given week. Fable eats that quota pretty fast. So you can't just let it run on everything all the time. That would be foolish because then you would be run out of your quota for the week and then you would have to cry until you get your quota refreshed again, or if the magical token fairy comes by and resets your quota for you during the middle of the week, which has happened the last 2 weeks, which has been great. So Fable, you should use judiciously. How do you use it? Well, the way that I've been using it is I say, I'm trying to accomplish a specific goal. I have these ideas in mind. I want you to write a design document that is highly detailed, which draws from the sort of known patterns and practices around this type of application that we're making. To come up with a design, also come up with a phased implementation plan. And for each phase, I want you to tell me which model would be the most appropriate to implement that phase, whether it's Fable or Opus. And then we will discuss the design. And then after we discuss it, we will execute the plan. So I've done this a number of times on the Slate project, where basically I got it to come up with a design. Then I go into Emacs. Okay, I use Emacs still, if you believe it or not. I go into Emacs and I read the document and I leave little notes in the document and I tell Fable to go back and read over it again, because Fable was the one that wrote it, to go and update it based on what I said. And then when we agree on it, then it goes, or the leader, which is Opus, goes and creates tasks to track the project. And then we start biting things off like one piece at a time. Okay, so everything's in phases. It may be Opus that implements a phase. It may be Fable that implements a phase. Usually I don't use Fable unless it is like super tricky stuff, like implementing the text editor or implementing the terminal rendering. So some of the things that are like lower level tasks that are, that require some effort, but don't require like deep knowledge or deep effort, I'll just put it on Opus. But everything else I'll put on Fable. But that's like 1/8 of the total amount of work. Okay, I'm trying to save my overall quota, because when you use Fable, it eats up your overall quota a lot faster. So I'm trying to portion it out. Andrea says, I do exactly the same. Delegate to Opus if you think it can handle it. Yeah, I don't let Fable drive though. I let Opus orchestrate. And then whenever we collectively decide that something is a Fable task, then it launches another Claude with Fable on, and then gets it to do the work. And that's worked out pretty well. There's been a number of times where it has had to diagnose some really tricky stuff in the asynchronous code paths of Sigil. In fact, recently, last week, there was a whole like day or two where all that was finding inconsistencies in how continuations, especially delimited continuations, are being reified whenever they get called back into later across the bytecode backend and the native C compiler backend, and then the native WASM compiler backend, and also really the bytecode backend running in WebAssembly, because all three of them have different async implementations under the covers. So getting all those to do the same thing in all cases, and then catching all the other edge case issues that we've never seen before, which a lot of these apps that I'm making are like flushing them out. Excuse me. It required a lot of use of Fable to pull these things apart, because it's really complicated code. Like you really need to have some knowledge around how to deal with stack management, and how Go routines interact with each other, and how preemption works whenever you have a preemptive yield execution model, which I do, where basically if you have code that runs synchronously, it could still yield to a coroutine that's running on a scheduler, things like that. So there's a lot of really tricky stuff that Fable is good for. Now, they keep saying that on the 19th, what a special day, the 19th, that they are going to take Fable away again. No, they're going to take Fable away? That just can't happen, can it? Well, they've said that twice now. They've said they were going to take Fable away on the 7th and the 12th, now the 19th, and I don't think they're going to take it away. I think there's too much competition right now in the AI providers that they're not going to do that. So hopefully I'll get some more usage of Fable before they finally do decide to take it away, or maybe they'll just make it a part of things going forward. But it has been quite useful for this specific project. I don't know that I would have been able to do what I've done in 5 days if it wasn't for having access to Fable. Not because Fable itself is so special, but having that extra intelligence has been useful. Now, I have access to the new GPT models, which I have not tried yet. They may also be pretty good too. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll have to try it out. But Claude code is much better for me in the way that I do my agent coding workflow. So that's the reason why I focus on that instead of Codex. Codex can't do the same things that Claude does for me. So I don't know. That's why I kind of need the high-powered models from Anthropic. Peter says, the new Kimi K3 drop and is close on the heels. I want to check out some of the open models, but I haven't gotten back to that yet. Excuse me. I've talked so much that my throat is starting to go now. Codex is good, but the one thing that it doesn't have that Claude has, which I use extensively, is the ability to have an MCP server inject a turn or a prompt into a running session. I need that because I have an orchestration system where I'm launching multiple Claude instances and they're communicating with each other through an MCP server that I created, which injects prompts into the session. So that's how they send messages to each other. Now, there are subagents in Claude that work kind of like that after I implemented my MCP server that does this kind of thing. But still, like, it doesn't work so well. I would rather have a full standalone Claude session. That may change the next 2 months whenever they improve the interface and everything gets better. But at least for now, my setup is better. Works great for me. And I can't get that in Codex because they don't have the same capabilities. So that's why I'm kind of stuck with Claude Code at the moment. All right. Questions. Because we got, I don't know, let's say maximum 10 minutes. What are your thoughts, the people who are still here, who have not died from hearing me ramble for forever? I'm pretty excited because I think there's a lot of potential here for accomplishing some goals that I've had that I cannot do with Emacs. Also kind of making there be a program like Emacs that could be the center of my workflow in the new world, which is the agentic world. Because Emacs can do that, but based on the way that the primary agentic coding tools are working right now, like you can't really use Claude Code through a secondary interface like you used to be able to. Like the agent shell things, I don't really know if you can use agent shell like that anymore. I haven't tried agent shell in Emacs for a while, but really, like I felt like using Claude itself, using Claude Code itself was the best way to use it. So I've been in a terminal a lot, and you can see a lot of time and effort in making the terminal emulator in Slate work with Claude Code. I'm sure it works fine with Codex too. So having an application like Emacs that has a really good terminal experience that's kind of built in, that can use Claude Code and Codex in the box, and also have multiple terminal sessions like tmux, etc. Like all that makes sense to me. Remote access from your phone, which I do all the time. Like I don't know, I probably said it before, but I'm constantly on my phone talking to Claude. Claude CLI sucks and paying more for using open code is pathetic. Yeah, not being able to use third-party harnesses is annoying, but I understand why they do that. I understand why they do it. They want you, if you're paying for a subscription, you're getting a discount on tokens. They probably want you using their program. It makes sense, because otherwise you should be using their API. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought now. Rolling back. I'm gonna get there. Anyway, the point I was trying to make is that having a program that's like Emacs but has all of the things that I would want from a program. Oh, Termux. Thank you. Thank you, me. I use Claude on my phone all the time, but I use it through a program called Termux, which is basically a Linux environment that's on Android. And then I SSH through my VPN into my home machine, and then run Claude Code through Tmux. That's too many steps. Okay, that's ridiculous how much I have to do there. What if I could just have an app on my phone that stays connected to my machine directly and has all my sessions and all my files available there, and I'd actually have a good experience, not like using a terminal app through Tmux on my phone, Like I would like to use Tmux, but not as a primary way that I'm interfacing with my home machine while I'm doing agentic coding on the go. Because, you're sitting there for 5 minutes somewhere. It's pretty easy to like type something in to move a project forward. Why not do that? Especially if you have a good interface to do it with, which is basically what I'm building. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm excited. A lot of progress has been made. I keep trying to get Fable to write up as many design documents as possible across the entire Sigil ecosystem, so that if they do take it away finally, I'll have things that Opus can do that are based on what Fable said to do. We'll see whether they end up keeping Fable around. I would like it if they did, but I can understand if they don't. Also, the last 2 weeks, they've done quota resets on Thursday, which, and in my quota normally resets on Monday. So you get a quota reset on Monday, and then on Thursday, and then on Monday again. So I basically had double the usual quota, plus the extra 50% they've been giving over this period of time. So I've made about as much use of that as a person possibly can to build all this stuff. So it definitely has helped bring the Sigil ecosystem forward a lot faster than it would have been otherwise. So I appreciate that, but they're really just trying to get you hooked on using their stuff. So what can I say? All right. So just to kind of put a cap on things, if you want to go to codeberg.org/sigil/slate, that's the repo where the project is. Slate project itself is. But there are other repos that are involved. They're really the two that you need, aside from installing Sigil, which if you don't know how to do that, go to Sigil/Sigil on Codeberg. Go to releases. And then on the release page, you can go download your build of Sigil. I use the AMD 64 static one because I'm on Geeks. It's a statically compiled muzzle C build, and that just runs. You can just download that and run it. There's also the dynamic build of Linux AMD 64. There's also the BSDs, Mac OS. I use Mac OS when it worked too, and it works fine. Windows, I don't really try very much. I use OpenBSD though, because I have a server that's OpenBSD. I spent a lot of cycles working on Kiln recently, which is my CI server. That's actually going to be at a level of like GitHub Actions pretty soon, which is kind of cool. Anyway, download the latest Sigil. Then you can build Slate by following the instructions on the non-existent README. I thought there was a README in here. Is it just Claude? Yeah, on Claude. So you need to have binary installed. If you have Geeks, you can just use it in Geek Shell. You build the web config using Sigil build, then you run Sigil serve, and you can see the local copy of that. Then, if you want to use it as a desktop app, you have to go to Sigil/Lantern and then build that. I think there's instructions here. Yeah, deps install, then build Lantern CLI using the native config, and then you can run it with the path to the build. I'm actually using the, oh, it's on the wrong branch. I'm on master. Go in there. And there's a run Slate script that actually wraps some of this to make it a bit easier. It basically just use run Slate and you pass it a directory to where Slate is installed. Or sorry, where Slate is built. The Slate repo that you cloned, and then it will run it. So that's basically how it works. In fact, I'll show you here. I go down into the Lantern folder, run Slate, /slate, which Slate is a peer folder, and it will run another instance basically. So if you build them yourself, then you should be able to run them fairly straightforward if you have the right dependencies installed. And since I use Geeks, I know I have the dependencies installed because they're there. So that's it. That's a lot of work in 5 days, but there's a lot of stuff that I had to do leading up to this to make it possible. So it's not like it's just, magic. I could have done this in any other language and would have made a lot of progress too. Maybe would have even made it a bit farther because I would have spent time trying to fix bugs in the runtime. But a lot more satisfying whenever you use your own language and compiler and ecosystem to build something like this, because then the entire damn thing end to end is yours, which is kind of like my thing. Like, I like doing that. And thank you to AI for enabling me to do that. It has Slate Sokoban built in. Butterfly, not yet, but it would be very easy to do that. Sokoban built in. I should put Black Ice in as a little side mode. I showed you Black Ice, right? Still there, I think. If it loads, if Codeberg Pages cooperates, you could go play Black Ice, which is basically a hacker Sokoban game. So yeah, maybe that could be built in. It's probably too big though. Probably too big. And well, it's a DOM game. It could work. Is it gonna load in any reasonable amount of time? But anyway, yes. I mean, having basic games built in, totally doable. Solitaire, might be cool to have a solitaire game built in. That could easily be done. Cedrus and Todd is built in. No, it doesn't. It does not have. Which, have I shown that? Codeberg. Cinder Cadence. It's not Cinder Cantata anymore. It's gonna load. I only posted in IRC. Yeah, I'm doing too many things. Fluxharmonic.codeberg.page. I swear to God, I put it there. Harmonic. No. Where is it? I swear. I have posted this somewhere. I swear it's up there. Oh, is it loading now? I think it's loading. Unless it's going to give me the 404 again. Load it. It's not that slow. There it is. Will it load? We need Sigil bookmarks. Yeah, we do. Oh, I forgot one other thing to show in here, which probably doesn't work. I tried it and it didn't work. Load. This won't show very well on here either, but it does run at 60 frames per second, which is pretty cool. While that's doing that, Control XW. Let's put in a website. I don't think it's going to work. Yeah. So there's a web viewer in here. Okay. There's a web viewer. Okay. There's Cinder Cadence. The frame rate's not that bad. I'll press start. There we go. Okay. I actually see it rendering pretty well there. Oh, it's 30 FPS now that my screen is limited based on the, what you call it? The screen capture. But it's 60 frames per second whenever you run it yourself. So it's basically a little bullet hell shooter game, and it's on a website. And it has generated music, so everything is being synthesized in real time, which is cool. Anyway, that's another thing that's been written in Sigil in the last 4 months, and the web port only just happened probably, what, like 2 weeks ago, I think? Anyway, there's that. Too many things. 31 FPS, that's more than Game Boy. That's true, actually. That's true. Okay, now I really got to go. I'm late. So thank you for indulging me in all of my AI psychosis outcomes that I've had over the last few weeks. I've been having a lot of fun. I've been pushing Claude to the limit. We're getting some pretty interesting, useful stuff out of it. We'll see if anybody wants to use it. People can tell me in the IRC if they like it. Trev says, Sigil Game Boy or for Game Boy emulator. You know, I'm pretty sure that's doable. So if anybody wants to write a Game Boy emulator in Sigil, go for it. Maybe it could even be embedded into Slate. That'd be pretty funny. Wow, so many things today. Yes, and that's this week. So imagine what happens next week. So anyway, thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate your time and attention as always. And until next time, happy hacking. Have a great weekend.